Hello and welcome to Todd Talk, where insight meets inspiration. I'm your host, Todd Hiller, and I'm an author, speaker, and longtime community leader, here to guide you on a journey towards fulfillment and balance. In every episode, we'll explore ways to fill life's emptiness, helping you uncover practical tools to create harmony, purpose, and happiness. Whether it's thriving in your career, nurturing personal growth, or simply finding joy in the everyday, Todd Talk is your space for real conversations and actionable advice. So let's thrive together, personally, professionally, and beyond. This is Todd Talk, and I'm thrilled to have you here.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Todd Talk. Thank you, as always, for being here, and I'd like to talk today about something that came to me as I was driving the other day. I was driving past this field that I have always driven past as a kid that was a hayfield for years, and eventually, one year, they stopped mowing it to hay, and it became just a field. And every once in a while, they would mow it or they would bush hog it with a tractor, and it would kind of get upkept. But for probably 5 or 6 or 7 years, no one did that. And now, all of a sudden, they kind of mow it every year, but they have to mow around some trees that have grown up in the middle. Now, when I was a kid, it was just all grass, and everything got cut to grass. And eventually, when you stop doing that, the shrubs take over and the weeds take over, and little trees and saplings pop up here and there. And that's what happened with this field. And as I got driving by the other day, I thought, it would have been so much easier if the people who own that property just found someone to mow it every single year, and then it would just all be this beautiful giant patch of grass. And they wouldn't have these random trees to mow around and these vines that are caught up in the trees, and they wouldn't have to, try to drive in circles and mow around all these different obstacles. They could just have grass like they used to. It would be easier to mow. It would be more worthwhile. If you were going to use it for a crop like hay, there would be more grass. And it occurred to me that the longer you let something go unchecked or grow unchecked, the harder it is to dig out later. And I think that's so true, not only with trees and weeds and this hayfield that I was looking at, but also with our lives. So bad habits or ignored problems, much like these trees, are kind of like those saplings. At first, they're super small, they're really manageable, and they're barely noticeable. Even after 2 years of letting it go, when it was just a little tiny shoot sapling, you still could have run it over with a lawnmower and it still would have cut it up and it would have been fine because it was just a super tiny tree. But the longer you let something go and the longer you let something grow, now a lawnmower won't do it anymore. You can't do it with a lawnmower because now it's become too substantial for lawnmower blades to cut. You'd have to dig it out and rip it out. And the hard part is that when you do that, and when you dig out a full-size tree, or at least a tree that's maybe 10 years old, then you're left with a giant hole in the ground, because the root ball has to come out with it. And it's not just a small impact, it's a much bigger impact. And this got me thinking so much about the habits and the things in our lives that we let go unchecked and we just let them go forever without dealing with them. And then how much more difficult it is to deal with them later on. And there's a quote, I think it's by Samuel Johnson, that says something to the effect of, the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. And so it's so true. Like, these little things that grow up when you're not mowing it, you're like, oh, it's still grass. We'll mow that field in a couple of years and it will be fine. But then eventually, if you just leave them there and left to their own devices, they will grow, the saplings, and also if left to their own devices, our bad habits, or the things that make us upset, or the things we wish we could change about ourselves, if we don't deal with them and we don't let them take off or we don't, not let them take off and keep growing, then they're just going to go unchecked and end up giving us a bigger problem in the long run. So my reflective question for you this morning or this afternoon or this evening, whenever you are listening, is what little saplings are you letting grow in your life right now? What little things have you said, oh, I'll deal with that tomorrow. I'll deal with that later. Oh, I'd like to do this, but I guess I don't have time. What little things in your life can you just go out now and snip off at ground level, use your little lawnmower, so to speak, to get rid of them so you don't have to use, a whole lot more effort later on. So I know a lot of my friend pointed out to me the other day, he's like, I love how you can relate so many things like to land and to nature and like farming. And I said, well, that's apparently just my personality. But, there's a lot of good reflective resources, I think, when it comes to nature, because we as people are growing living things, just like the things in nature are growing living things. So when it comes to habits, you can think about them like these saplings that grew. The sapling stage, you can walk up, you can pick a little sapling out of the ground with your fingers. When it's 10 inches high and there's one leaf on it, you can pluck it out with your fingers and it doesn't do any damage to the ground. It just comes out by the roots and there you go. Habits are the same. If you have one little thing, one little bad habit, or one little thing you want to change about yourself that will just take a little bit of effort, then you can do that. You can say, oh, you know what? Gosh, I got to stop doing that. Whether it's, I don't care what it is, whether it's smoking, whether it's drinking, whether it's exercising more, whether it's going for walks more, whether it's spending more time with your kids, less time on your devices, less time at work, whatever it is. Every habit, every bad habit, everything we want to change about ourselves has that sapling stage. And if you can catch those things early, you can just stop them or pluck them out of the ground, and there's no bigger effect at stake. There's no bigger thing that happens when you end up plucking it out of the ground. Now, the next stage, we kind of call it we'll call it the brush stage. The sapling has grown up to a little bit bigger. It's not a full-size tree yet, but it's something that you still have to deal with. So it takes a little bit more effort. In this case, you might have to pull it out with a machine or with a truck or whatever if it truly is a tree. These are the habits that you might have to say, oh, I've been doing this for a while, but it's really time for a change. Or these might be the things in your life that are driving you absolutely crazy, the organizations you belong to, or the job that you hate, or the group of friends you can't stand, or the toxic relationship you're in, whatever it is. It's inconvenient to get rid of them, but it's still manageable. You can still say, haven't been going down this rabbit hole or this path too long. I can still kind of walk back from this and manage this, and there's not too big of an impact. The problem is when things get to the tree stage, the full-grown, here's a tree now, like in the middle of this hayfield, I got thinking now if they wanted to manage them, they're going to have to dig them out with a machine, and when you take a tree out, there's a root ball attached to it, and it leaves a giant hole in the ground. Your things in your life, your habits, or the things that you let go unchecked, or the things that you want to change but don't change, if you let them get to the tree stage, if you let them get big and giant and healthy where they have put down roots and they are deeply rooted inside you and they're there to stay, when you yank them out and uproot them and try to get rid of them, not only does it take a whole lot of effort, but it also leaves somewhat of a scar on you. And I don't mean a physical scar like a wound, but when you pull out this giant tree out of the earth, now there's a hole where all the roots used to be and all the dirt is stuck to the bottom of the tree. And in yourself, in your personal life, it's the same. When you yank out this giant part of you, this big thing that you should have taken care of a long time ago, it has a much bigger impact on you as a person and on your emotional well-being and sometimes even your physical well-being. So, habits wire into our brains the more we repeat them, just like roots spread underground. So the longer you let a tree grow, the longer it has time to put down roots. The longer you let your habits go unchecked and the longer you keep up a habit, it is rewiring your brain. So think of those wires in your brain, those synapses and those neural pathways that are expanding, and they're those little things, those wires and fibers running through your brain and learning those habits over and over again are just like those roots that are growing deep down, and they're going to be harder to unwire and undo the longer you let them go. And look, habits aren't just personal things like, oh, I want to stop biting my nails, or I want to stop procrastinating. This applies to relationships. It applies to your health. It applies to your finances. It applies to who you give your time and energy to. It applies to so many things in respect to us as people. So look, and we've talked about this before too, about avoiding a tough conversation. This was in a previous episode, but I want to use this as an example. If you avoid a tough conversation, it starts really small, right? You're saying, I don't want to talk about that now. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Or, we'll talk about it next week. Or, oh, God, I don't have time. I'm too tired, whatever. The longer you let that go unchecked, the longer you let that thing happen, the longer you let that little tiny conversation that you want to have go unsaid, and the more time you let pass without having the conversation, pretty soon it can turn into resentment, it can turn into broken trust, it can turn into a giant argument, when if you just had the conversation in the beginning, in the sapling stage, so to speak, it would have been a super easy, hey, listen, I want to talk to you about this. You talk through it, 5-10 minute conversation, everybody's happy, as opposed to an argument that lasts 5 days with people feeling upset and angry and resentful and all that kind of stuff. So do that in the beginning. And yes, I know it's tough. And, like skipping a workout is another one. If you're a person who likes to work out and, if, you're doing that for your own health and your own well-being, and That's a fantastic thing to do. But if you skip one workout, if you say, oh, I missed a day, that's pretty easy to recover from. Nope, nobody is going to go upside down, tipsy-turvy, and fall over backwards off the face of the planet if they miss one day of workouts. However, if you let that turn into years of neglect, then when you do finally start working out, it is so much more difficult to get into the routine of working out, and it's also physically harder to do the workout itself, right? So if you're a person who likes to do push-ups and crunches every day, or you're a person who likes to run or ride a stationary bike or go for walks, whatever it is, if you don't do your push-ups and sit-ups for one day, when you get back to it the day after that, it's still pretty easy to do your push-ups and sit-ups. If you miss one day of running, when you go for a run the next time, it still feels good to run, and you're still okay with it. If you don't run for 15 or 16 months at a time, and then you try to start back up again, I promise it's not going to be as easy as it was when you only missed the one day. And again, this doesn't just apply to workouts. This applies to all kinds of stuff, right? Your health, your finances, your personal well-being, your relationships, your goals, your career decisions, all that kind of stuff, right? And how's the Benjamin Franklin quote go? About prevention. Hold on, my brain's working. An ounce of prevention, I should have written this one down. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I think that's how it goes. So if you do a little bit of preventative maintenance, and if you do a little bit to make sure you are doing the things you want to do and living the way you want to live and avoiding the things you want to avoid, right, then you don't have to cure yourself, so to speak. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to go back in time and say, oh my God, here we go. It's going to be a long journey to get back to where I was. You can just keep going forward because you've done that preventative step. You've said, oh, this little tiny thing in my life needs to change. Let's change it now. Let's have the conversation now. Let's fix it now. And that's a fantastic thing to do. And I know it's not easy, but it is definitely possible. And if you approach this with the mindset of you need to prevent these things from happening in the first place, or maybe not happening in the first place, because sometimes things happen and things happen in our lives and situations come about that we obviously can't control. But if it's something you don't want to continue and something you want to get away from, make sure you just get away from it early on. Have the conversation early. Make sure you only skip the one workout instead of skipping 100 workouts and all that kind of stuff. So, and here's the cost of waiting, so to speak. You know, uprooting late, like I said, letting that little sapling grow all the way until it's a tree and taking, way too much time to address the problem, it comes with a pretty big price, right? So, like I said, taking that tree out of the hayfield, now it becomes a hole in the ground. Now you have to bring in dirt, fill in the hole, plant some grass on top of it, and hope the grass grows back up. Otherwise, I guess you could just leave a big hole in the ground. However, if you leave a big hole, if you leave a small hole in the ground, it will become a big hole thanks to rain and Mother Nature and animals and erosion and all that kind of stuff. You, as a person, are pretty much the same. There's that one little cute saying that, like, we're all houseplants. We just need a lot of water and some sunlight to be healthy. So much of that is relatable as us as people to nature. But, when you remove a habit, when you remove a long-term habit, it's like pulling up that tree. The tree leaves a big hole in the ground. And like I said, when it comes to us as people, it's not a physical scar, but it's an adjustment period that comes after that. If we leave the habit unchecked for long enough and the sapling becomes a tree, and now we say, oh God, it's been 9 months or 10 months or 2 years of this thing I need to really get away from and walk away from, now you have an adjustment period to deal with. You have that hole in the ground in the hayfield. You have this adjustment period where things are so difficult. You need to make sure you stay on top of avoiding the habit or having a healthier habit or whatever it is, because it's not a just one and done and everything's over and done with and everybody's happy. It's a constant battle and a constant reminder and a constant effort on your part to keep moving forward in the way you want to. So we get used to having the tree, quote unquote, there, right? The people got used to the tree in the hayfield. And we, as people, get used to the bad habits, even if they're harmful. And this is something that's crazy because people are, I'm sure, like all of us think that, oh, well, we wouldn't knowingly do something that's bad for us. Well, yes, we would. Hello, look at how many people still smoke cigarettes. Like it says on the box that they're bad for you. And if you're a smoker and you're listening, please know that I understand life choices and personal choices and everything comes with a cost. And we all do stuff that's bad for us. And it was just an example. But we do lots of things and have lots of habits that we know are bad for us. I know I shouldn't eat the cake. I know I should go for more runs. I know I should go for more walks. I know I should quit my job. I know my boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other, fiance, whatever, is driving me up a wall and is I need to have this tough conversation. All these things we knowingly do. and we just let them go unchecked. And it's not because we're bad people. It's not because we don't care about our own personal health and well-being. A lot of us are people who put a lot of effort into being our best and doing our best. But when these little things creep up, it's just like that tree that ended up being there. Like, well, it's there now, so I guess we're just going to have to deal with it being there. Those people that own that property just lived with the trees in the middle of the field that used to be nothing but grass. We as people, when habits develop or things that we haven't dealt with end up staying in our lives, it doesn't mean that we're bad people or we don't want to live a healthy life. It just means that we're dealing with what's there because it's gotten a little out of hand. But I promise it is possible to undo those and to walk backwards from those. It just takes a little bit of effort. So, one thing you can do as you look at yourself, and if this is something that you are struggling with or you want to get better at, it's all about awareness and it's all about immediate action. And it's possible for us to do this. So some practical tools. Here's what we can do, right? You're probably listening and saying, well, great, Todd, I know I do these 3 things that I really shouldn't do, but I don't. How do I prevent more from popping up? You can write them down, right? Take a look at your life and the habits you have during the day or the things you have in your life that affect your personal and emotional wellness, right? And write them down. Write down small habits that you might be tolerating. Write down things that bug you and they're just still pretty small, right? Take account of those saplings. Take a look around and survey the area and be like, what little things in my life have popped up lately that I want to take care of? And you can kind of walk backwards into this. You can start with the small ones and write them down, and then you can work your way to the bigger ones because obviously the bigger, longer-term habits that we're more kind of invested in, so to speak, they take longer to undo. So start with the little ones. Take a look at the little things in your life that you want to get better at and you want to be better about and maybe be different. Write them down. Write down what you're tolerating, and then take some immediate action. Once you get them written down, don't wait, right? Address it today. Write it down and be like, oh, well, how should I fix this? And go ahead and address it. If it's, something you want to say, oh, you know what? Let's use a workout, for example. I haven't worked out, this whole week I didn't work out at all. And that's going to cause a really big problem later. I don't want to fall into this bad habit of not working out or not running or not walking. And I have a friend who their kids went back to college and they used to go for runs. My friend used to go for a run with his son. And now that his son's back in college, he's like, oh, well, I don't really have my running buddy anymore. That is a prime example. Yes, you don't have your running buddy, but after that first week or two goes by, take a look at it and be like, I don't want to not run for the entire time, the entire semester that my kid's at college, away at school. So address it right then. Go for the run, okay? Don't let it set down deeper roots. If you say, I need to balance my checkbook or I need to pay some bills or I need to make a budget, whatever it is, don't just say, oh, I guess I have to do that, but I'll do it eventually. If that's a small thing that you haven't done in just a little bit of time, go ahead and do it. Set some time aside and get it taken care of and prevent it from growing any roots and settling down any deeper within you as a person. And when it comes to replacement, right? So in my brain now, I'm picturing this giant tree getting plucked out of the hole, right? We don't just leave the hole in the ground there. Like I said, we don't just pull out this giant tree with the root ball and all the dirt that goes missing and leave a hole, because then the rain will get in and erode it more, and erosion will make the hole bigger, and animals will dig in it, and the wind will blow the dry dirt away, and a medium-sized hole will end up a giant hole, and now you've really ruined a nice piece of property. So make sure you do some replacement planting, so to speak. Fix the habit and replace the habit with a better habit or with a better way of life or with a better choice or something that makes you feel better or something that makes you feel better about your choices. Like I said, the hole from the tree, you put dirt in it and you plant grass over the top and you let the grass grow up, and now it's back to being healthy. When you replace a bad habit or when you replace a bad situation or you remove yourself from a bad situation or a toxic environment or a toxic relationship, replace it with something better. And that doesn't mean you have to jump back into another relationship or jump back into a new friendship or whatever it is if it's an interpersonal thing. But when you get rid of that bad habit or that toxic situation, replace it with something that's good for you. The time you used to spend smoking, replace that with time going for a walk. Replace that with time listening to an audiobook. If you are someone who says, I used to go out 10 times a day, and smoke a cigarette, and now you can say, now I take 10 different times throughout the day and I push play on an audiobook to learn something because I like to read or like to listen to books. If you're someone who has said, I was in an awful relationship, And I used to spend all my time with this person. Now I broke the habit. The relationship is gone, but now I have all this free time. I don't know what to do. Find something healthy to do. Go for a walk. Go to the library. Donate your time to, a good cause, a homeless shelter, a community event, whatever it is. But don't just pull out the habits and then say, well, now what do I do? Because I feel so different. I'm not sure what to do. Replace it with better ones, right? And when you do this, make sure you do it consistently. So once they get rid of those trees, if they ever do, they pluck them out, they're going to plant grass over them, at least that's what I would do. Then if you just keep mowing the grass consistently, it will always stay a hayfield. It will always just stay grass, because anything that grows, if you cut it every year, or if it's a lawn and you cut it every couple of weeks, those little trees that try to grow, or those pricker bushes or whatever it is, they can't sustain, they can't grow because you're mowing it all the time and you're keeping it just grass. Your life is the same. When you get your habits situated and when you get to a place where you're feeling healthy and you're like, wow, this is great. I've gotten rid of so many bad habits. I've got some new good ones that have replaced that. I'm feeling really good about myself. Keep up the consistency. Keep your commitment to your commitments. Keep yourself feeling that way and feeling that in that good way and feeling healthy and happy and fulfilled and joyful by being consistent with your habits and keeping up those things that make you feel good. And, in your mind, revisit this too. Think about what your life could look like. I remember when I drive by, I remember what that field looked like when I was a kid. It was beautiful. It was just all this beautiful grass, and it's next to a river. It was such a nice spot. So I think about that in my brain. I'm like, well, now it's all overgrown. But, someday if somebody went in there, as I drive by, I'm like, oh, let me in there. I'll get rid of the trees and mow it again. The farmer in me wants to do that and turn it back to grass, and it will be super nice. But think about yourself that way too. Say, hey, listen, in the next 5 years, is my life or are my habits going to be happy and healthy, or am I going to be resentful that I haven't fixed any of these? And go ahead and think about the future. Think about what you want your life to look like and make that plan. And encourage yourself to remember it's not about perfection. It's about paying attention. The sooner you deal with it, the lighter the work will be and the smoother the ground will be, so to speak, that you can walk on tomorrow, right? If you plucked the sapling up 20 years ago, you could just keep right on walking. There'd be nothing in your way because the rest of it was just grass. Our habits are the same thing, okay? But you don't have to be perfect. It's about paying attention to yourself and about staying consistent to yourself. Perfection is not the goal, right? Progress is the goal. Paying attention is the goal. Make sure you deal with the things you want to deal with so they don't get out of hand, okay? I'm going to leave you with a quote, and then I'm going to leave you with a call to action. My call to action is pick one habit this week, one little quote-unquote sapling habit this week that's something small and noticeable, and I want you to uproot it. I want you to get rid of it, okay? I want you to take it out and pluck it out. One small habit this week. That's my challenge for you. Find that one small habit you want to do or you want to get into, or that one thing you want to remove yourself from. Pluck it out and be better about it, okay? Small actions today save you from big holes in your life or big holes in the ground tomorrow, right? Plucking out the sapling means you don't have to dig it out when it's a tree and leave a big hole in yourself or a big hole in the ground. So I'm going to leave you with this quote. We first make our habits, and then our habits make us. It's a quote by John Dryden. If you've enjoyed this episode, my friends, thank you so much for listening. Please share it with someone who might need to hear it. As always, be safe, be well. I appreciate your time and energy. I hope you enjoyed the message. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to Todd Talk. If you've liked what you've heard, please go ahead and subscribe and follow along so you don't miss any updates or new episodes. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your day.